Hello, my homeMORE family. What is amazing is that PK's on it, a new homeMORE show that I'm previewing tonight. We have been ardently raw and uncut, just having our hands in the middle of talking about the year 2025, online dating and long distance. We have been here for what, almost an hour? And I was getting concerned that the recording was going too long. Then I look and see we are not recording at all. At all. Nothing. Not a drop. Not a tittle. Oh my goodness. Mr. Karson. Okay, so listen, this year has been a doozy, and I don't even know what to say. And maybe this will make it a quicker record because now I have an idea what he might say and what I might say. But welcome, my hopeMORE family. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Karson. Mr. Karson and I are both preacher kids. Both of our parents, we got it honestly from both ways. Both our mom and dad are preachers. We both experienced grief from recent deaths of our parents. His father, my mother, last year. We both love the Lord. We both work in our parents' ministries, although in different ways. We both are of a particular age. He's younger. We both have a very secular professional life, and then we have a ministerial calling as well. Mr. Karson has completed, or he's at the end of his dissertation for a doctorate, and I'm going through some transitions with my law practice, and so we have a lot in common. But interesting enough, as I'm previewing what I'm calling right now, the working title, PK's on it, is that he and I have very interesting conversations. And as we do this preview about the 2025 year in review, online dating and long distance, he's willing to come on here and be brave and courageous and talk about our lives in the last year or so, both individually and together. Because guess what? I met Mr. Karson online on an online app that is built out for Christians, and I would say their name, but they're not paying for advertisements, so maybe I'll let them see this clip and they could pay us to push them. But I met this wonderful man of God on this online app, and he is definitely one of the most genuine hearts I've ever met on any online contraption or in person. And we have a lot to talk about, but I'm laughing that we've been talking for almost an hour and this is not recorded. So maybe the Lord protected us, because it was interesting, some of the things he shared, and we had some technical difficulties. He fell off. I'm just like, we were talking all that time. But 2025 has been an amazing, interesting, and challenging year. For those of you who are part of my hopeMORE family, you recognize that really I haven't done any new content since my mom's passing last year. I've done a lot of replays. Mr. Karson and I have recorded something earlier this year, but with Facebook having changed over things, I think that video is gone away, maybe on my YouTube. But yeah, so we want to talk about this past year, our lessons and different things. And I don't even know how we can recreate any of what we've already shared to each other, and maybe this just helped me talk faster. So Mr. Karson lives in a state away from Florida. He's very private, so I'm trying to be mindful of what I can share. And we met on online, and I just want to ask, so why were you on an online dating app? What were you looking or searching for?
Holistic measures.
What?
Holistic measures.
What?
Holistic measures.
Holistic measures. All right, Mr. Doctor, soon to be Dr. Karson. Can you break it down in a different way? I mean, come on now. We're one of the things that I talked about on a show that I've recently been posting is a replay from 2017 or 2018 about ways to get over the winter blues. I encourage people to try online dating. So you were open to holistic measures when you got online?
Yeah, I think just going back and forth with life. Life gets busy for all of us, and sometimes you just realize that a part of your life that's missing is maybe that social part, or just having relations with the opposite sex. I mean, who wants to talk to a man all the time, especially when there's pretty women out there, right? So, but with online dating and online, while you're going from work, especially if you're living out of town, you can just, pick up the phone and say, hey, or, whatever. I mean, it's just easy access to make a connection. And once you make the connection, you chat a little bit and then, hey, can I get your number? And develop it from there.
You know what? We don't talk enough about, I think, in the church, and I can say that as a church girl, a PK, how important it is to have like affirmation from the opposite sex. And I think the older you get, especially if you're not partnered in marriage, that I don't say the harder, but it often goes by the wayside, and we don't think of it as something that's necessary, or maybe it's misplaced as needing attention or trying to get the attention of someone in a way that doesn't honor God. But I think it's very, very positive. In my experiences, especially in online introductions, that's what I like to call it. Like, it's online dating sort of dates back to the old AOL and people having like the little rooms they go into where the entirety of the relationship is basically talking and texting for long periods of time. I love to think of it as online introductions. That's really just a step up from maybe meeting someone at a conference where you don't know their background, you don't really know where they live, you only know what they tell you, and maybe you separate after the conference and still keep up with each other. So it's like you're introduced, but online dating as a concept, I think is a misnomer, but there are so many great men and women of God who you would normally not meet, who you can meet online. And so I think it's a great opportunity to be introduced to like some really cool people. So let me ask, like, have you had an experience, even outside of this one, where you met someone of the opposite sex online that was a positive experience? And do you mind sharing about that?
Sure, I did. I have a friend that we are friends to this day. We've been friends for 20 years, maybe. Met online.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And pretty solid. I mean, she's a great person, and uh, we never had a romantic interest, but it never led that way. So we wrote it out the way that it was supposed to. I figured, I guess. I don't know. But I
So you
mean, like,
seriously get online or maybe have those interactions online on what could be considered traditionally dating apps for the purpose of friendship or friendship and beyond, if that's what like blossoms out of the interaction.
yeah, I think with me, my intentionality is to be open. I mean, however it leads. One of the things I realize is if I have to force something, if it's a force fit, it's not a good fit.
All right
Um,
now.
and by the way, do not take that and try to do your lawyer stuff with it.
You know what? This is one thing that Mr. Karson and I have in common. We're preachers by nature, so we always got a little quip. We got a three-word triplet something saying, and he gets upset sometimes because he'll say something that I think is a great catchphrase, and I just start using it, and then he thinks he owns it, not understanding the conceptualizing of a catchphrase that literally, yeah. Anyway, so if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. I think it's interesting because I have met also some people online, whether it's a Christian cafe that is for potential friendship and mission people on missions to connect, but also people have connected romantically, that I've met some really great people. In fact, I had on my show a few years ago, my first love, my worst love, or my worst date, and my biggest taboo. And my worst date was with the guy I met online, who actually we ended up becoming really good friends. And he actually introduced me to this pastor that I had an amazing relationship with. I just felt like it wasn't the Lord for us to have forever. And it was based on, he was like, even, I don't know if I'm the one to refer you to someone else, but we have since met. I've gone to his church. He like, so someone who didn't turn out to be a romantic match, really a terrible match, ended up being a friend that I trust enough to like travel over to Africa to visit family and stuff like that. So, or family friend of his that I end up dating. So there are really good opportunities. So let me say this to anyone watching. If you are godly in everything you do, be godly on online dating. I know it can get a little interesting, especially when you don't have the opportunity to see people in their habitat, if you would, or know more about their background from your own personal experience. But I have had very pleasant experiences with meeting men of God who were who they said they were in the profile. I've had some weird ones too, but you vet them just like, again, you would vet someone. Even if you've known them all your life, you've never dated them, you're learning people in a different way. And I just think that it's a great way to meet people you wouldn't ordinarily meet, and be open. It may not be a love connect, or it could start off something you're interested in. You may think they're cute, like, Mr. Karson thought I was cute. Nothing's wrong with affirming each other in that way that only people the opposite sex can, but be open, be godly. Come on now, somebody, be godly. Don't go running off telling somebody. I had a dream after a first conversation, especially women, and I would say men too, that God told me you're my spouse. And it's like, I just clicked on your profile. Like, do not do that. Even if you believe God is saying it, don't do it. And if someone does that to you, most likely you should just like ghost them. Ghosting is immature, but be careful. So the quick nature of online connection, don't let it be a quick nature of you like overly professing love and all that kind of stuff. That's crazy. So getting back to our connection online. So what made you connect with me? I think we've already talked about how we don't know. I think we both had we must have both liked each other for us to match up. But do you remember what maybe drew you to even want to connect with me?
Your beauty.
So the profile pictures matter, guys.
All right, so it's the beauty is what initially captured me, but it was your personality and that kept me here.
Well, do you remember what I said in our first conversation was like really, really hit me? That you said in our first conversation that was like, whoa.
I believe it was something about how I really wanted to please Jesus or something similar.
Yes, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit weird, but I'm such a church girl. Like when Mr. Karson and I was talking, and I'm used, and I have unfortunately dated apostle so and so, or talking to someone prophet so and so, and not to say that the titles are wrong, but I've definitely fallen for like Ashanderobo, so like, ooh, God, he knows the Lord, but it hit me in the sincerity of our conversation, because our first conversation was really, really raw. Was like, he's like, I just want to please Jesus. It hit me differently than if you would have said, I just don't want to sin against God, or I want to obey God. It just spoke a relationship. Like, I just want to please Jesus. Like, you knew him. and you know him, and your heart is to like that he likes what you're doing in your life, and that you like anybody that you would be in a relationship with. And so I just was really struck by how sincere that was, and it just made me want to get to know you more. Like, yes, like I don't know that, and some other things, because you actually um was super respectful, but we quickly decided like, yeah, let's like get to know each other and talk some more. And I know for me, over the past year, I used to, back in the day when I was doing online introductions, especially meeting people who purport to be men of God, I would like carry on two or three conversations at the same time, maybe go out with, but like I'm getting older now. It takes too much energy. So after we connected, I was like, okay, let me just focus on connection, having a clear, sincere connection with this person who just seems so amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So let me ask then, when we started talking, um, and I am trying to use the benefit of us having gone through some of this because of the idea of time. I cannot believe we were talking for an hour that wasn't recorded. Um, do you okay, so you liked that I was cute, and you liked my personality. Was there any challenges that came up for you? I don't want to say red flags because that's overdone, but anything, I would say in the first few months,
Yeah, I
that
think,
you're concerned about.
yeah, uh, you were very much a talker, very much a talker. And man, I'm telling you, I just, she's, I didn't know at one point. I'm like, I like her, but it's pretty tough. But I realized that you was a lawyer as well. So
You are funky funny to me right now. So, yeah, that was tough for me too, because I thought that may have been a deal breaker. But I have to give it to you that I realized I still got to work on it. But I realized, like, we were talking, or I was sharing something, and I guess I was going on and on and on, and you were just like nicely like nodding your head. And then, oh man, I should find it because I ended up putting it on the Spellman Morehouse group page, where I have to say, whatever the words you use hit me as sincere and respectful. I was so embarrassed. And my personality, to just hear that idea outside of that context, I'm like, how dare you? Tuh. Like, I get paid for my words. But it was really like, almost like precious heart, dear, gorgeous, beautiful spirit. Is there something I can do when, like, maybe the signal when you may have just kept going on and on about the same point, because I sincerely am listening to everything you say, and sometimes I just really get lost and just like there's so much happening. And I think one time you said it literally hurts me or something crazy, and I put it on the Spellman Morehouse page thinking that my Spellman sister would be like, girl, that's a red flag. And I had so many women like, oh, that's me and my husband. I talk a lot, he hardly talks. And there were some men who were like, oh, somebody finally understand my pain. But it seemed like majority people were like, at least it's very important to know that he must still like you because he's there. And the way he asked, because the words I don't remember verbatim, showed respect. And so, there were some people like, girl, forget it. But I really was like, well, Lord, let me hurry up and get off this train. And God knows I'm a person who will jump off a train in a heartbeat if I see something amiss. But in some ways, although not evident in this moment, I'm trying to be more mindful to not over like beat a dead horse. But I am a lawyer, and that's something he likes.
you do.
So that's just, and then I'm a litigator by training. That's just something you just had to put up with. I think a challenge also for me, which I didn't mention, you're very sensitive to background noise. in a way that I was like, do you hear like a dog? It's like literally we could be talking and I like pull a piece of paper out of my pocket. What's that noise? And I was just like, what in the world? Do you have like the sonic ability of a dog? Like, and a part of me low key thinks is he just wants directed attention. He doesn't want you to be distracted. But it's sort of his fault since he likes FaceTiming more than anything. 99.9%, if we're talking, he wants to connect. Yeah. So by FaceTime. But like that sonic hearing, I'm like, he's sensitive to a lot of talking and noise. Oh, this is just not gonna work. Not gonna work. So yeah. Well, sir, let's see. So, gosh, I know we're maybe tired, but I need you to bring your energy up because we have to finish this. So,
Okay, let's go.
um,
Let's go.
when we first started talking, were you aware, or on my profile, was it obvious to you that I also practice law as a profession?
I don't remember saying that. Maybe it was there. I just don't remember saying it. Or
But when
perhaps
you
I was
found
just
out
kind
that
of
I was
focused.
a
So,
lawyer,
huh?
but when you found out I was a lawyer, was what was that impression on you, or how did you, like, what were your thoughts when you found out I was a lawyer?
Oh, I actually, I love that. I love that because most lawyers are reading they have a way to easily stimulate you. And when a woman can do that, like it causes a man to level up. Like you can't stay in the kids part. You got to level up emotionally, mentally, and so many other areas. If if you want to have an opportunity to see what happens. So I appreciated that. I mean, to this day, I love the fact that you're a lawyer. I do. I love that. I mean, to me, when I think of lawyer, I think of intelligence. I love that. And one of the things that I really like about you, you're intelligent and you look good. Yeah, like
Thank you, babe.
there are certain things that we both know that highlights you. Okay, um, so and there are things that we know that and I know that I just don't too much care for. Um, but
Well, I definitely think we both have got around about sometimes when I shared that, like, there are times when I'm like, I just want to be a girl, and you're introducing me to someone, via FaceTime. You're like, oh, Hope, and she's a lawyer, and I'm sitting there going, but at the same time, your appreciation of my being a lawyer has also made me think about, like, why am I being so self-conscious to be called a lawyer? That's what I do. And I, in some ways I've have had to acknowledge to myself that, there are times when I'm nervous that I won't fit whatever someone's idea is of a lawyer. Like someone's, filthy rich, not wearing, whatever cheap shoe I may have on. And so I've had, where there's people who may say that they are afraid they're going to be judged to not be better than. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to be judged to supposedly be more than what they may imagine that I am when they meet me. So I've had to deal with that. But I can tell you that I really love the fact that you're getting your doctorate, because and it's not about the degree itself, even though that's very, very hard to get. I just love really intellectually curious people. And there are people who have degrees who don't, they're never like, oh gosh, I remember when our first conversation, I believe it was our first conversation, or maybe the second, and you're like, yeah, I'm preaching on the dispensation of Christ. And I'm like, yes, yes. I mean, and then he went to like go into like what he teaches, and I'm like, he is preaching about the dispensation of Christ. Just the fact that you said dispensation, I was like, who talks like that? So I love how intellectually you're curious you are. And that's really, really attractive. So I think we mutually like people who are smart. And it's not really for me based on degrees, but the idea that you were trying to break down the dispensation of Christ in a way that a congregation could understand it. But as I mentioned, your doctorate, how has it been, or especially in this past year, working on a doctorate and our interactions? Because that's a pretty hard fought thing to try to accomplish.
Yeah, uh, it is pretty challenging. It's pretty challenging, and it affects more than one area of your life. Not to mention that I'm, still working a full-time job. So working full-time, the academic stress, the academic, I mean, it's a lot. So still while trying to, talk with you and keep up with you and look at your pretty face and all of that. But I will tell you this: a lot of times that when, you know, I think our relationship kind of took a hit, but the times that we did speak, looking at you just kind of like brought me back to life. Like it just brought me back to life. Uh, yeah, I mean, I honestly think you're pretty. I do, especially when you wear certain colors and your hair is a certain way, and like that is the truth.
Men
That is
have
the truth.
audacity. Well, this is what I love though, and this is keeping it 100. When it comes to online introductions, like if you don't like the way the person looks, you don't have to endure them. Like it definitely is a deselection process. So I'll say, this is not a situation. Online, you get to see what they look like and decide, like, oh, they may be full of the Holy Ghost and got 300 doctorates, but if you don't like what they look like, that's something you get to do. But I know also that what Mr. Karson is talking about, like he prefers FaceTiming. In all the months that we've known each other, like I think maybe there's been a non-visual call 5 times, maybe. I know it ain't been 10, because this Negro had the audacity says if we can't talk FaceTime, then I don't want to talk at all. I think one of the challenges I had is because like we had some really outings and dates. And I realized in our interaction, the long distance aspect of our relationship was more taxing than the online introduction. Because one thing about the FaceTime, and this is, again, a learning experience too for some people who are afraid of online dating. I want to say that although FaceTime can be inconvenient because you're not always looking cute, we laugh because he hates bonnets like most Black men. But if you calling me at a certain time of night, I'm gonna have a bonnet on. We gotta protect, right? Or whatever you get to see someone in their atmosphere and their habitat. So that visual is helpful, right? That's how I met his mom. That's how he sees my dad. I know who's in the church van going to church, or him at work listening to music. So when you're connecting with someone who's long distance and you didn't have the privilege of getting to know them directly in person, I do think FaceTime is a great way of sort of observing their life, like what's on his desk. You don't know how many times, probably, Mr. Karson, I'm checking out your interior. I'm like, why do you have a green light? Like you get to see beyond just what they say, and that's effective. But yeah. But one thing I don't think I was honest or didn't realize with myself is, and let me say, admire you, is that you're pretty big on, and maybe it's the thing that men do, you're pretty big on what you want, and not only what you want, but almost what you won't stand for. Like, oh no, we are FaceTiming. And I really like, one of my biggest love language is quality time and physical touch. And it don't have to mean you be nasty, but like not having a person in my space and direct, like I felt like at times, based on whatever is going on in my own life, and we're going to talk about grief because he and I both have been grieving a parent, losing a parent in the last year, or a little bit over a year now. But like that is so meaningful to me. And maybe it's the female energy that's a little different, but I wonder if we would have lasted as long as we did, if I would demand that same kind of like, well, I need to see you more in person. Versus like, oh, he's working on his doctorate, he doesn't live in town, and not being sort of honest with what I felt like I needed. And it's really okay if what just like with online dating, you can decide if you like the way the person looks. And it's not online, it's just in life. You can decide, like, you know what, this is what I need. And it's okay that I need this. And it's okay if a person that you like can't provide that. Like, in the sense of, like, it's not our jobs, period. When you have a priority, when you have life situations happening, for you to bend and be flexible in a way that doesn't serve the purpose that you believe God has you focusing on. But that was definitely a challenge for me. That was definitely a challenge for me. Let's talk about grief a little bit. How do you feel that the grieving process with your dad having passed away a few months before my mom last year, how do you think that impacted our interactions this past year, or just anything in your life that would be changed or touched by it?
Well, losing a parent, that's not something that happens every day. But you're affected by it every day. So I think to connect with someone not knowing that what happened on your end and you not knowing what happened on my end, it gave me a way to view things a little bit different. Not only from the opposite sex, but she lost a mother, I lost a father. The roles are different. So how do you perceive what's going on your side? How do I perceive what's going on my side? So to be able to look at, um, to recognize that, I guess, uh, just kind of challenged me a little bit in a good way. It's a very good challenge. And needless to say, after my father passed, uh, a few months ago, there was a minister that passed who was on TV. And when I found out, that really touched me. But it started like it almost like it things start turning around like, okay, this really what happens in life. Like it happens to all of us, anybody. It's not just so I was at a point that I did take it, or at least I tried not to take it as personal, um, to where God was picking up
Wow.
something like that. Yeah. Or, yeah, yeah, yeah. It changed my thought process to the like, this really does happen. Like, we hear about it, but until it hits home, and when it hits home, like hearing about it is totally different. It's totally different. There's no way to prepare for it. So,
Wow. There's so many ways that grief hits people, and it's not one size fit all.
yeah.
And that, like, I lost my mom, you lost your dad, even just the dynamics of being like your same sex parent and how they model so much for you, for us. And I think I'm understanding better. I'm not totally there. Um, and it's not all men, but, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you before, I think there's certain aspects of grief, the closer we got, that at times, I would want to like sort of share in that or help you through that, where I felt like you were in a cave, like almost like, oh, you're having a hard day or time, and maybe find out it's about grief. And I think in my grief, there's probably more room to like, oh, come join me in this grief, but I didn't necessarily share it as well, because I feel like so many times my value, maybe it's just me as a lawyer used to being in crisis, that my value is often like telling someone, hey, you can lean on me, versus saying I need to lean on you. And and I saw this most vividly when your first cousin passed away. And that was like early in us getting to know each other. And I don't know if you remember, you found out your cousin passed away, I think while we were on the phone, or maybe we got off the phone with expectation to get back on the phone. And I didn't hear from you, and I called and like, my cousin died. And and at that time I felt like we were close enough, and I just so happened to have planned to be in Atlanta that weekend. So I literally, I'm embarrassed to admit all this, I literally loaded up my car with things to like cheer you up. And I was just like, I'm gonna show how I can be there for him. And I barely got you to answer the phone. And so by that time, I'm like, I'm not sharing with him that, like, he needs whatever he needs. I don't have what he needs, right? I think you, maybe that weekend you spent with your family, I don't know, but I just remember feeling like, oh man, like, I don't know, just like in a tough but loving way, like God was like, that is not your place, and that's not what is needed. And then my feelings were hurt, but I never told you until at the end, like, yeah, like, I'm close to where you are, type of thing. You're like, why didn't you tell me? Because it felt very like, when I reach out and someone doesn't respond, especially when I know that they're going through something, thankfully I've learned over time that you can want to give as much as you can, but if that person doesn't need that, then you can't be upset. That, don't take it as rejection, right? Just like, okay, because that could be, I would imagine, some of the worst weird moments is when someone's trying to push in with the claim that they want to be there for you. Because if they don't need that, or they don't want that, or they're not seeking from you, then it's like, it's more respectful to be like, well, I'm praying for you from a distance. And I think when you're getting to know someone, and you romantically or otherwise, that can be an interesting place of walking in. And I know we haven't really talked about that a lot, but even I see how responsive you are to your mom, knowing, imagining anyway, that she is this amazing woman of God who's lived up. Your mom and dad were married longer than my parents were, over 50 plus years. And just like, to see how quickly you respond to her, I both admire it, and also was like, okay, like, there's a line. There's a line of people with priorities, like the dissertation, the mama, the dog, Brownie, and then maybe some of your siblings, and then maybe me. So that's really
Give me one moment, please. One moment.
okay. Do I need to remove you?
Yes, if you will.
No problem. So so that's just a really big aspect. And I just think that's, I think, just an honest aspect about being in a relationship with people. And maybe it's not a romantic one, or one that was a dating one. It could be your best friend, it could be someone at church, it could be your mentor or mentee, that when it comes to particularly grief, um you have to learn to love them how they need love. And sometimes that love is like giving them space. And it can feel like so opposite, especially if you're an extrovert like me, where I'm like, if I'm hurting, pull closer. If I'm hurting, hold me closer. If I'm hurting, like, I'm not going to tell you I'm hurting, because I'm so used to being someone to lean on. Um, and so I appreciate those who sit there and knock the door down to try to get to me. But there are those who like, please, I appreciate it, but I'm not needing that. I'm not needing that. Oh, yay, John. Uh-oh, laugh out loud. And so, and for those of you who are getting on, I know we've been live for 40 minutes, but believe it or not, Mr. Karson and I have been talking for almost an hour and a half. We didn't realize it was not recording. So we're trying to like get through some of the parts that we mentioned before. So yeah, so this year in review, and looking at online dating and long distance, and I told you we're PKs, we're preachers' kids, so we're calling it PKs on it. We thought showing this preview of this show, and talking about our origin story would be very, very helpful. We are going to hold off on the next show to talk about where we are now, as far as our relationship, our friendship. But this is a really cool way to talk about some of the aspects about some of the aspects about our interaction, and that there's certain aspects with our getting together that I think is very, very, very helpful as a guiding post. And not because we're like perfect models, because we're not, but I just want to share with you all, besides the fact that, as I mentioned when I did a replay of 9 ways to get over the winter blues, try online dating. I'm particularly talking to believers in Jesus Christ. Like, know that everyone doesn't deserve to spend time with you. So be very careful on who you select as you get to know them. And I wrote that Mr. Karson, his love for the Lord and his consistency in his prayer life was like 2 big things that I thought was just like, it made me feel more safe to share my time with him. And I don't know what's happening, but there was some challenge and he had to get off, and he's coming back hopefully. But if not, then let me just share a few more things and tidbits that I may leave as I look over this past year. Just like in your friendships and your colleagues, and maybe if you're in school, your classmates, God has people in your life for a reason and sometimes a season. And when you treat your unmarried men in your life, in your church, like brothers, and they treat you as a single woman like a sister, like the Bible describes, then you don't have to worry about being dishonorable. You don't have to worry about having what's the word? Oh, it's another word. Having inordinate affections. I caution against letting emotions lead first. Like, you can let your heart of love, but you make sure you leave that person in a better position than when you found them. And I believe the basis of healthy relationships is friendship. And I know you, like me, may be thinking like, oh, I'm really careful not to be friend zoned. And I even most recently had that situation be a concern. But at the end of the day, if you can't be friends with the person that you're trying to get to know for the possibility of romance or relationship, then what are you doing? What are you doing? And so some of the things that I felt that was really helpful, and I'm gonna share some of the things he shared when we were doing all that recording that didn't record, was that I really loved, and I know I'm such a PK, it is sexy to me, a man who really is a worshiper. I literally feel like, as a person who aims for abstinence and celibacy in my relationships, that people say you got to test the car. Like, I think if a man is open in expression and love for God and worship, he's going to be a great lover. He's going to be a King David, right? Who was a worshiper, a king, and a great lover. That got him in trouble. But I'm just saying, the idea that they can be open and free. And I have to say, when it comes to my experience, like this, Mr. Karson, like his worship life caused me to be envious. One of the things that happened after my mom died, I found myself not having the same responsiveness to worship music, to soaking instrumentals, because when my mother was sick, I would play the scripture and music and worship all the time. So much so that even certain songs that were meant to be directed towards the Father, I would think about them as related to my mother. Like William McDowell had this song called Stay. And it's basically about like, you want God to stay, you want his Holy Spirit to stay. My heart is longing and ooh, and you don't want to let go. Well, when I hear that song Stay, I think about my mom. And so while William McDowell was like, stay, I don't want you to go, my heart, I think of my mom and being in the hospital room the first night. And I hear that she had stage 4 cancer. And I'm like, when he's like, I want more, I'm telling the Lord, I want more time with my mom. So I mentioned all that to say that, whether it's like, hey, us connecting while he's at work, or sometimes we'll talk and like he's just coming out of worship and the music is still playing, I would just be so provoked in his worship time with the Lord that it literally brought back a return of that kind of like emphasis, like I want to worship. I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And so I thank God for that in my life. Like he provoked me. And then when we were some months in, I found out that he for 5 years has been running an intercessory prayer group on Clubhouse. And I love the fact that he not only prays but leads people every morning, Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. almost without fail. And even this past week, like the whole prayer was in tongues. I think I liked it more that he didn't tell me right away, because I am sort of used to being a PK, that I meet another preacher or minister and they want to pontificate on the Lord and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that they're fake, but I've had some experiences where people put on, and I've had the opportunity of sort of sneaking up on his worship life and in his prayer life, and it provokes me. And one time I was definitely falling in love with a person who wasn't a believer. And when I realized like how vapid and shallow our love would be over a lifetime, when he couldn't pray me out of a paper bag. So, you know, find a man who's handsome who also knows how to pray, who also can be vulnerable in worship. And he fits that for me. And he provoked me in my own prayer and worship time. So I have to give that shout out to him. And something that he said that he liked about me was he felt that I was very feminine, which I really love. And I think sometimes, especially as Black women, we're not often highlighted about being feminine. The world suggests, especially dark, big girls are, rough, or, I've already, confessed of my, and if you know me, I talk a lot. I have a talk show after all, or being a litigator, being aggressive in pursuing, advocacy. But I would really, that he would share, like, he was drawn to that. And he's definitely not attracted to women who are just unnecessarily aggressive, loud, violent, harsh in their tone. And so, I appreciate that he saw that in me, in that has been a big part of what I've been wanting to cultivate. And I'm glad to see it more cultivated, because I didn't grow up with a value in that. That was for like, I don't know. I didn't grow up with a value with that. And I'm thankful that my mom showed that, but I've been more mindful to allow myself to be a lady, and allow myself to be not always in control, and allow myself to lead with the feminine versus the masculine. So I just want to share that. That's a part of the reflection. And this last thing, since I think he's not going to be able to come back on, I wanted to share was that one of the challenges we had, and we'll talk about a little bit of that next week as we look at more previews for 2026 Hope More, in doing PKs on it, is that when we met and we started going out, and he's long distance, and so it always requires travel to connect. He was also working, he started his dissertation, which took a lot out of him. He works full time. He also is the church administrator over church's mother has taken pastoralship over after his dad is his past, and I totally understand those types of challenges. But his ability, or what he felt like his capacity to meet as often, um and let's just be honest, like to focus on like trying to build something, um it was greatly reduced, and the expectation was greatly reduced, in my mind, that anything could come from this. And because, like I almost mentioned, there's priorities, but I understood what that looked like, because I myself, having wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5 years old, I was in love with my first love after law school graduation, after spent a week and a half with him, and he's going back to New York, and I'm about to take the bar in 2 months or 3 months almost. And, we're having this conversation about where we're going in our relationship. And he's like, I can't imagine marrying anyone but you, but sometimes I don't know. And I was like, listen, I don't have the capacity for this right now. So why don't we just say that this is not going to happen? And I don't really want to hear from you until I pass the bar, till I take the bar. I did not come this far in my academic and career pursuits to be emotionally all over the place dealing with the relationship and uncertainty of a relationship, and then fail the bar too. And his feelings were hurt because we've been friends. And my last year in law school, he sent me like cards and flowers, and he was so supportive. And he's like, "Are you going to do this to our friendship?" And I was like, "It's not about that. I just have to focus." So I totally relate to a person at the end of an amazing hard pursuit, like a doctorate, saying like, even though he didn't use these words, I don't really have the capacity to be going out with you and all these things, but I still want to stay connected. I still want us to remain close. And that was a challenge. And now that he's done with his dissertation, I'm just so proud of him, and hopefully have his doctorate. But I would say in the last few months that challenge has definitely developed into where we are now, which we will talk about in our next preview. So it give our audience a little bit of background on our origin story. But he and I, as preacher's kids, have a very interesting perspective on life, liberty, education, the United States of America, our place in the Black diaspora as Black Christians, who are professionals, even our understanding of what the modern day church needs. And so I really appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate him being a guest. And I'm sorry that you had to leave, but I hope that this preview, you guys have enjoyed it. And I think even most importantly is that this origin story and us reviewing this past year about online dating, long distance challenges, that people will at least leave with a sense of like, when God brings someone into your life, it is for a reason and a season, and you have to honor God in them, honor God in each other. And if you date the right way, you ain't got no shame about nothing that happens, and just trust God for the difference. And I'll leave you with this. Preacher's kids are as close to perfect as you can get. Close to perfect as you can get. So if you ever have the honor to get to know one in a real way. I'm joking, but sort of not. So listen, guys, I have not been create new content for the most part since my mother's passing last year. And so 2026, I'm gearing up to do more content creation. I want to do a Hope Law segment that only deals with the law. I love PKs on it, and some other original programming, because hopeMORE is more than a show. It is actually short for hopeMORE hopeMORE Innovations Media Cubed, and Media Missions, and Media Missions and Ministry is like the heart of that triple M. And I look forward to doing some short film, to get into some more multimedia aspects of the things I would love to create. So I love your feedback. Thank you for showing up, especially unadvertised, to this live stream. And I pray that you have a wonderful, wonderful time reviewing your year. You could do it like this in the sense of like almost under certain headings, like, you know, your dating life or your work life or your ministry life. Just thinking about the year, what the challenges were, what are the things that stood out. I love you so much, and there's nothing you can do about it. Bye bye. And thank you to Mr. Karson for being our special guest, and he'll be here next time. I think we're going to connect next Wednesday because I'm still loving Wednesdays as hump days historically, but we have reclaimed it as hope days, or in this case, hope nights. Love you guys so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening and rest of your week. Bye bye now.